Hello PMO people and PPM system implementers. Today's webinar is for you. Thank you for joining me today to hear about the do's and don'ts of successful PPM tool implementation. I'll be giving you plenty of ideas to help you turn your PPM tool into a successful business tool, and this will cover topics from initial tool selection to implementation and operation and long-term adoption. My name is Gero. I'm co-founder of Program Framework, and my company has been doing this since 2005, implementing project portfolio management tools in the Microsoft platform for customers across all different sectors and industries for all sorts of project and change use cases. So we have learned a few things along the way, and I look forward to sharing those with you. Okay, let me start by explaining what I actually mean by PPM tool, Project Portfolio Management Tool. Essentially, this will be implementing an enterprise database for all PPM data, the single source of truth, nowadays almost certainly in the cloud, and we will have users maintaining data in this application. We will be drawing out reports on an automated basis, self-service dashboards and so on. And we have the opportunity to join up with line of business systems. And of course, all the different workloads that you want your PPM tool to cover are ultimately about data that needs to be stored in a single place. And this is the enterprise database for it, secure, with information that is relevant, complies to your organization's information standards and rules. Something to point out there, this enterprise database approach is absolutely taken for granted in most areas of business operations. Imagine your finance department running financial accounts just on a bunch of spreadsheets. But even today, it is commonly the first time our customers implement such a tool in the world of projects. So how can you tell though if you even need a PPM tool? Well, most likely that's the case if indeed you have a PMO or a similar organization that is responsible for the governance of multiple projects, and that is more than just a handful of projects, and indeed you're expecting that to grow. Your situation right now may well be one of spreadsheet hell. It may look like this, lots of disconnected content, spreadsheets, documents, PowerPoint decks, maybe Microsoft project plans in different project folders and so on, and you're spending much of your life manually pasting data into management reports and publishing them once a month, possibly with much delay and with much administrative overhead. I would make the point that no PMO should put up with a bunch of spreadsheets for the long term. Every PMO deserves a modern PPM enterprise tool. So we may well feel that we need a PPM tool, but is now the time to start implementing one? Are we ready for it? And what happens is a lot of organizations will feel that they do need a minimum maturity level so that they're ready for a tool, and they will then spend a long time designing process frameworks, and then they will actually start implementing them using spreadsheets again. I would suggest that the most important thing is that you have clear ownership for process and tool in the organization. And then there's a real opportunity to grow your maturity with the tool from the start. And let me share a little story here to illustrate this. A few years ago, we had a customer who needed to implement an enterprise PMO covering 3 different portfolios, 3 different project delivery teams that were all very immature. And we used the project status report that was produced automatically by the Microsoft PPM tool that we implemented as a way to achieve agreement around process and terminology. So the status report was available out of the box, and look, it's got a reg status at the top, red, amber, green. So that inspires the conversation of how do we actually standardize on the meaning of red, amber, or green around here. And it has progress narrative. Well, what are the best practices for submitting the narrative of progress into this report? It's showing risk and issues. That inspires the conversation around the information standards and process principles around those registers. And so it goes. Of course, it will report on the current stage of the project and key milestones, which supports a conversation around standardization of project stage gates and so on. Now, the beauty of this was that, of course, everyone was benefiting from doing this with an enterprise PPM tool from the start. We were saving all that admin and pain of spreadsheets. People, just filled in information in the application, didn't have to worry about how the data was presented in reports, didn't have to worry about manually distributing data, no one had to copy and paste the data. It readily rolled up into portfolio and organizational dashboards so everyone could see the benefit of that. And it established a working method that was fit for purpose from day one. We did not have to migrate to a PPM tool at a later point. We started with it, and we were, everyone benefited from those efficiencies from day one, and we actually achieved great user adoption. It was absolutely the vehicle for this EPMO to take off and establish the journey of continuous improvement and driving process maturity. Another point I would make is that you do not need a huge budget in order to implement a PPM tool. Modern cloud-based tools are affordable, particularly if you start small with simple functionality. However, do spend some money with specialist help, people that come in and help you set things up and increase the chances of tool success from the start. So, we do feel we need a tool. We think the time is now, but how do I actually make the business case and how do I get funding for this? Now, this is quite a big topic and I don't really have the time to cover this in depth today. All I will say is that we can, of course, make the case by pointing to a huge number of features that will drive benefits in our worlds of projects. The question is, do our executive budget holders actually care? Maybe not. But if we start to translate this into higher level concepts such as the time savings and the cost savings that we're going to enjoy, maybe they start to get interested. But then let's talk about the better decision making that is going to be enabled through greater visibility of data. Let's talk about faster, more predictable throughput of projects and how that can translate into an increase in trust and reputation that our senior sponsors are going to enjoy amongst their peers. But the real thing that we need to talk about is the fact that the PMO is the engine to enable strategic objectives of the organization, because the organization's strategy can only be delivered through change, through transformation, and that means projects. And that means the PMO is the very driver of strategic change. Now, if you cannot get the budget for a proper PPM application, then that means that you haven't sold the PMO as an enabler of strategy. Now, that's all I want to say. This is a big topic. What I recommend you do is go to pmostrategies.com and listen to Laura. Laura Barnard has a great blog for PMO leaders that she calls Impact Drivers, and she's helping you to position the PMO as a driver and a delivery organization for essential strategic change, and helping you to get the PMO valued. And if it's valued by senior executives, then there's no way that they would let you struggle with spreadsheets. And absolutely, the budget for proper PPM tooling will be seen as essential. Okay, so now we're off. We are gonna find a tool that fits our needs. We are gonna go to the market, maybe go through a tool selection and tendering process, and for that we need to define our requirements. And a lot of organizations will now create a great big spreadsheet and make it a free-for-all for lots and lots of people to add their requirements to this spreadsheet. And I'd rather you didn't do this, and you didn't include lots and lots of very detailed requirements and load it up with just in case requirements, as I call them. It's all that stuff that by no means do we need it now? But we feel that it should be there in a tool that we select so that it is future-proof, just in case we need a particular feature in the future. And often we are tempted to design the solution ourselves. I've seen so many tenders where they're very detailed functional specifications, such as must email the project manager when XYZ happens, and so on. Well, is that really the right thing? Maybe in the solution that you're going to select, emailing the project manager isn't a thing. Maybe that project manager is going to be notified in some other way, or that email process is obsolete because something else has happened. So don't be tempted to design the solution yourself. Let the vendor do that. And don't be tempted to go to market with hundreds of requirements and not rationalizing them and applying some level of judgment on those requirements that really are a priority to you. And with that, we as vendors really like to see a description of the nature of your projects, some metrics around those, how many projects, size of your teams, and so on. And how do you work now? And how are you organized? And what are your business challenges, your goals and aspirations? With all that, we are in a much better position to propose a solution that will fit your needs. Here's the worst case scenario in all of this that I've been through numerous times over the years, which is an organization going to market with lots and lots of sophisticated requirements, lots of automation and integration and so on, then receiving very costly responses, of course, because it costs money to deliver all that. And lots and lots of time has been spent, weeks of work invested by the team to put the tender together and evaluate responses, and vendors have invested all this time to put these responses together. And now the realization is that this project is completely beyond the budget of the organization, and the whole thing is terminated. What a waste. Okay, a few hints for choosing your tool. And one thing you might be tempted to do is really focus on core PPM features only. Maybe, the sophisticated features that you need from the project scheduling engine, earned value, critical path, and so on. But what you ought to consider really is the wider context of collaboration and knowledge management that is being offered by the tool that you're about to choose. Successful collaboration, studies have shown this again and again, is fundamentally important for successful projects. And then with that, there is a real need to inspect the platform that the tool is going to be deployed in. That is by no means of secondary importance. And the example here is Microsoft Cloud. This is to you, Microsoft Cloud customers out there. If you're invested in Microsoft Cloud, that's where people log into in the morning. Well, try and make use of that platform. More about that in a second. One other point though is don't place too much value on free trials. Obviously, a lot of cloud vendors freely offer trials, but really they are likely to only give you a very superficial experience of the tool. It may be a better idea to down select to maybe 2 potential suppliers and then pay them some money and get a paid for prototype up and running that's already some customized. Maybe some of your real data is imported into it, and engage much deeper with that solution in that way, which provides a higher level of assurance that the tool is right for you when you come to select it. But let me make a few more comments about this topic of using the platform we already own. And this is particularly aimed at Microsoft Cloud customers. And you might say this is very self-serving of me as a Microsoft Cloud solution partner. But it is you, dear Microsoft customer, who's already invested in this platform for a reason. And what you find in this platform is, some of the most modern digital transformation toolboxes that we can use to create solutions for PPM, as we have done and we offer out of the box, that can be orchestrated with the services that people are used to using, Teams, SharePoint. We have various work management and task scheduling tools readily available in this platform. So let's use it if we already own it, because with that, we can rest assured that these services are already secured. We know where our data is going to reside in our own cloud tenant. It's a familiar user experience, and with that, a much greater chance of user adoption and so on. The alternative is, of course, that we might invest in other platforms, and there are some real challenges in that. Those databases are going to reside in some third-party cloud, possibly needing a new information security assessment by IT. It's another platform that IT will ultimately need to look after. We need possibly different user accounts and so on. Right, so there's some really good reasons to work with the platform that is already strategic to you. And here's a new element to this, now very much being talked about, that is making this even more relevant, and that's the rise of artificial intelligence. So again, if you're a Microsoft customer, as you well know, Microsoft is world leaders in bringing artificial intelligence to productivity tools that you use every day, and that is the future. And your Microsoft investment is future-proof in terms of AI. So now we are ready to implement our solution, and we need to think about the scope of it. Now, don't switch on this tool and go live with all the features that it offers. Clearly, that's an obvious one. But also, don't use the tool as a reason to implement brand new processes. Do consider a minimum viable product approach, and maybe it is viable to use the tool merely to support those processes that you currently operate, and then demonstrate how this tool now helps everyone to work with those processes much better, much more efficient. As an example, if currently you don't have a lessons learned process, but your new tool has lessons learned out of the box, don't use that as a reason or an excuse to now switch on lessons learned as the tool goes live. Keep that for later. Focus on supporting current ways of working with a tool that now everyone is happy to adopt because it makes their life so much easier. And once that's embedded, then add new processes. Now, this doesn't work for everyone. I do realize that sometimes there are compelling reasons to do more once as soon as the new PPM tool is available. Another key recommendation is, of course, to go live with a pilot that is just deployed to a subset of users, and of course learn from that. Apply some improvements, apply your learnings to then roll the tool out to further users over time. And with that, it's very important to not spend all your money by the time you've gone live. Keep budgets for future phases, because once the tool is up and running, you will want to make changes based on what you've learned, based on the real world experience of operating the tool. Users will come back to you with suggestions for improvements, things that you thought were going to work like this, actually going to have to work like that, requiring a reconfiguration. You will want to do more reporting or whatever else. Once the tool is live, you can make changes that benefit from your actual experience of operating the tool. And here's one particular feature area that we would always advise you leave for later, and that's the development of automations. Unlikely to be something you want to do for day one, because it's hard to anticipate what automations will actually be useful unless you've really operated the new PPM tool for a while. And then you can make decisions in terms of what automations are going to be time saving or of benefit, and you can specify them in the context of your actual experience. So when we come to consider the prioritization of features for our PPM tool, and this may be a helpful way of thinking about it. let's assess them in terms of their benefit to the organization versus the challenge to implement them, to configure them, to adopt them, And here are a bunch of example features that are just randomly placed here. And there'll be a sweet spot. This is the stuff that is either a no-brainer, absolutely needed, or is of such significant benefit that this is going to be included in our day one implementation, because equally the challenge is not forbidding. So that's what we're going to go live with. And this is, of course, personal to each individual organization. And maybe there's then some stuff that is not too challenging to implement, but actually of very little value. Maybe it just caters for a process that is very rare. But then maybe something like timesheets here seen as very challenging, not from a technical perspective, but maybe from an adoption perspective. Maybe it's an organization that currently doesn't do timesheets, so it's a cultural challenge to implement timesheets, and that pushes it further over to the right as a challenging item, therefore not within the sweet spot. For another organization, the situation may be different. If they come from a place where timesheets are well embedded, then we should of course consider timesheets as a day one feature. Now, one area that deserves special consideration is resource management. And I want to call out something that is a typical aspiration of customers, quite granular resource management. The dream of having access to detailed demand data, so we know what certain teams and people are scheduled to do, possibly down to week or even daily level. And usually this is achieved through a sort of bottom-up planning approach where effort is attached to tasks within a project plan. And if there's 1,000 tasks in the plan, well, all those effort values are aggregated to give us a total demand for resources by individual resource names and roles over time, and we do that for all of the projects, and then that's our portfolio resource demand and so on. The problem is all this granular information is always going to change because it's predicting the future, constantly requiring us to go back into our project plan, reschedule the work, lots and lots of work of keeping this data up to date and relevant. Very hard to do, very challenging. And there is an alternative, which I call top-down resource management, where we say goodbye to all this detail and we go to a higher level, and maybe that's just days demands per month per resource and thereby resource role, and then if work shifts within the month, we don't have to update that. So it's sacrificing the detailed data for something that is actually sustainable, and we certainly have customers, and this is, by the way, a concept that we deliver through our own tools, Power Framework, our PPM tool in the Microsoft platform does that very thing, and that delivers useful data for portfolio planning and operational resource management in a sustainable way. So again, certain organizations will absolutely need that detailed resource management. Maybe it's for planning of engineering call out jobs and so on. But for a lot of organizations, this is what I call the forget about it zone. It might be highly aspirational, but ultimately unobtainable, and we're never going to get there. And then here we have the typical sort of phase 2 stuff, or phase 3. This is the aspirational features that we are going to switch on over time once the core application is well embedded, and then we make decisions about future rollout with the experience of having used the tool for a while. Now, this next point may be obvious to you, but believe me, there are people out there that completely underestimate what it is that they are about to undertake. The PPM tool implementation needs to be treated as a project. Don't think you can just switch a tool on. Don't think that you can take shortcuts because you're doing it to yourself. It's often the case with IT portfolios that just implement this tool for themselves. And because they're so IT savvy, they might be tempted to think that it's all just going to be easy, just switch it on when we're off. Rather, as I say, treat it as a project, do all the right things in forming a core team. As we're going through the implementation, certainly, we would always take a very agile approach with frequent reviews. We tightly control scope. And then once the tool is up and running, have a support arrangement with your vendor. So, as with any enterprise system, make sure you have access to support. So now one of probably the most important topics of all, successful user adoption of our new PPM tool. And as I said earlier, a lot of our customers are greenfields when it comes to PPM tools. They're implementing one for the first time, and it is difficult to anticipate the cultural impact. And with that, it's of course important that we identify those skeptics in our user community and try and turn them into supporters. And if we address the skeptics in particular, then they're vocal. And they usually care. And in that, we usually find the skeptics in our project manager community. Sometimes project managers traditionally only provide information of their projects on request. Suddenly, it's all on show. The whole dynamic changes. Project managers are directly contributing data into organizational dashboards without the PMO in the middle. And so on. So here are a few thoughts on how you can frame the conversation with project managers to win them over. You can tell them that they'll be saving time in all sorts of ways by avoiding double entry. They won't need to distribute information or worry about the format. Equally, the future of AI is actually quite promising for productivity, although they may be concerned about that, of course. They're going to be collaborating much more easily and successfully, working in Microsoft Teams, having visibility of what team members are doing, sharing knowledge, and so on. And we're giving them the tools to be a better PM. It's going to be much easier to them to be compliant with the standard processes that we're implementing. It's easier for them to finding the right templates, and they'll surely are going to feel good about supporting organizational goals in adopting this tool. But equally, what's in it for them? They will get what they need, such as when they need to escalate something. Let's say to a project sponsor, those people can't hide. What they've escalated is visible to all. And, like things like change requests, they will stay on file until something has happened. And so, in a sense, they will be benefiting from working in a more predictable environment. And we need to tell them not to worry. They will be supported in adopting this tool, and it's easy to use. And their voice will be heard in the way that the tool is rolled out. So with that, we are likely to win over our project managers, but equally, we need to insist on active senior sponsorship, of course, and we need to invest in training and change management. And in that, we in the PMO in particular need to plan on being self-sufficient in the long run. We need to be able to induce new joiners into using the tool. We should be creating our own knowledge base and become self-sufficient in terms of educating all the different user communities, including senior executives and business intelligence users. And then finally, consider applying formal change management approaches, and this is particularly crucial for large implementations with significant user communities. You may have heard of ProSci change management. My company has several ProSci change practitioners. where we apply formal approaches to change management. And there's a bunch of tools available that are all about communicating the change, reinforcing the change, dealing with resistance, and approaching these kind of conversations in a very structured manner is part of the project approach from the beginning. Again, it costs money, it needs effort, but it is well worth investing in. Because it completely changes the game in terms of successful outcomes. So still on the topic of adoption, the good news is that our new PPM tool is most likely going to be helpful in instantly identifying where we have adoption issues. Because now that we have an enterprise database, records are timestamped, we can see where data hasn't been updated for a while, where things are overdue and so on. I'm showing you here a couple of sample dashboards from our own Power Framework application, our compliance dashboard showing compliance issues by project manager, those that have late overdue status reports and documents missing and risks not updated and whatever else, or our document compliance dashboard instantly identifying projects where documents are missing or haven't got the right sign-off status. So the PMO not wasting time figuring this out and rather spending that time in working with people and improving their tool adoption and the overall maturity of process. A final idea on measuring adoption might be by means of surveying your user community. Ask them some questions, see how they feel prior to the PPM tool implementation, and then sometime after the tool has gone live. And this, what you see here is an actual survey, actual results from a large customer that we worked with some time ago. And you can see here positive development across all of these different questions, which is of course an expression of a positive user adoption experience. So how do we now ensure that our success is for the long term? And my key tip here is to never scale back governance. Now that the tool is deployed, your work really starts. You need to continue to make sure that this tool does its job. Don't consider a headcount reduction in your PMO as a sort of key outcome. Don't necessarily make that part of the PPM tool business case, because people will still be required to support the tool and its users. And in that, you can't take your foot off the gas. Now that the tool is there, your work really starts in driving its adoption. So you need to continue to invest in building project skills in the wider team. The PMO now taking that central mentoring role, investing in ongoing user support in order to make this a platform for continuous improvement. So as you are then gathering data in your enterprise database, that single source of truth, think of ways of getting more from that data, increasing the value. And then the final point I want to make here is that, one day when you leave, make sure that this tool is handed over properly. We have customers where the PMO used to be a well-oiled machine working with the PPM tool to drive all of these efficiencies, and then core people left and they didn't hand this over properly. New people came in that didn't understand the tool, had no idea where the organization had come from when they implemented it, and the value of the PPM tool was diminished as a result. It was no longer utilized in optimum fashion, and it's a shame to see that. But that is clearly not what's going to happen with your PPM tool implementation. Certainly with some of the information I've passed on today, I'm hoping to have increased the chances of making your implementation a successful one. And hopefully you've come away with the realization that the biggest single success factor in all of that is actually you. You the people that select, deploy, own, and operate the tool, and are in charge of governance and securing its ongoing success as a platform for continuous improvement and maturity. And with that, we're coming to the end of this short webinar. I thank you for your attention. I'd be delighted in providing you with demonstrations of our own PPM tool in the Microsoft platform that we call Power Framework. Please do get in touch if you would like a personal demo for your team. Also pointing you to our websites, programframework.com, and our product website, powerframework.com. And indeed, there is my email address if you wish to get in touch. Delighted to give you demos or answer any questions you may have. And with that, I say goodbye and thank you for watching today.